notifying you that we're recording in progress. And for interest of everybody's bandwidth, the quality of the presentation, you're coming in muted, but you do have the ability to use the chat feature. We will have a question and answer period towards the end of the formal presentation, but I will be moderating the chat throughout the evening. So if at any time you want to put a question in the chat, I'll be recording. And if you'd like to ask a question anonymously, not put it in the chat, you can message that to me directly. I'll introduce everybody as we move through, but I wanted to begin by thanking everybody for a wonderful opening of school, and we've all adopted the new visitor procedures extremely well. If you've come to school in the last few days, you've noticed that we have a new ID system in check from Raptor Technologies, and the purpose of that system is to allow us to keep better track of all of our visitors. And I explained that in a letter sent home to the community recently. So you can read over that. And the principals and I are going to be meeting and discussing the procedure for admitting visitors when we have large groups of people coming in for concerts or school parties. So right now we're using the process. You come into the building, you have to make sure you have your ID and you get a single-use badge that gives you access to whatever purpose you're coming to the building for. As we move forward, we'll continue to work out any kinks in the system, and we welcome your feedback on that. I wanted also to speak briefly about the mandatory professional development modules that we have for all of our faculty and staff. It is produced by Safe School, an interactive online testing system which allows people to learn more about everything from health emergencies, such as using an EpiPen when responding to allergies, understanding warning signs of concussion, learning about life-threatening allergies, understanding the safe handling of blood-borne pathogens, learning more about students and the way that they might present with mental health issues, and also understanding different aspects of school security. Each year, all faculty and staff engage in 12 hours of these online training, and in order to finish the training, each has to finish a proficiency quiz demonstrating their understanding of those very important topics. As we have discussed, there have been a number of very important and long overdue facilities upgrades throughout the district. And one of those was increasing cameras and live video feeds to ensure that we have all eyes on the important entrances and exits to our building. And we also worked with our technology department, who had the great cooperation of our police department to ensure that those live camera feeds can be accessible from the police station and vehicles. If you want to learn more about the detailed updates on facilities we've had going on throughout our district, I would suggest that you attend our Board of Education meeting this Monday at 7:30 in Borough Hall, where we'll have a formal presentation of facilities upgrades. Our first administrator on the agenda this evening is Mr. Vitarello. Mr. Vitarello is the principal of Central Middle School. We are so fortunate to have his strong leadership in our district. He's going to be discussing the types of drills that we conduct in our schools and how we work with the police when we're handling those drills. Mr. Vitarello.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me okay, and I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. So at each school in the district, we complete 2 drills, and those drills consist of 2 drills a month. One drill is a fire drill each month that every school completes, and another drill is a school security drill. And those school security drills consist of, I'm going to run through them, an evacuation, a lockdown, a bomb threat, a medical containment, a tabletop review. And that's just a review of our procedures. We reassess our plans, how the drills went, and if we need to modify or adapt anything. And after each security drill is completed at each building, the administrator will always send out a notification to parents that was new about midway through last year that we've just conducted and completed a security drill. So in case your kids did anything, you would be aware that day that everything that we went through was a monthly drill. So far, I'd also like to share that the police have also visited each building and reviewed their bus safety procedures with all of our students. So that's like a reminder of seatbelts, exits, what to do in an emergency, how to evacuate the bus safely if they need to. So we truly appreciate their support with that. I also wanted to share that in the first 10 days of school at each building, we will complete both a fire drill and also a full evacuation drill. So these evacuation drills will be to our sites in case we ever had an emergency of any kind and we needed to. So we coordinate with the Long Branch Police Department on those days. We always have in the past, so we conduct them yearly. So we really appreciate their support. They're on the front line with us. So they look routes. They help us get to our evacuation sites as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. They help us literally cross the street, transport any students that we need to get there as soon as possible, anybody who might be handicapped or have any special needs. So we truly appreciate their support with that.
Thank you, Mr. Vitarello. So for those of you who don't know, Mr. Vitarello was in Long Branch before he came to Long Hill. You did. And we're not going to let you forget it because we have a long wait if we were waiting for the Long Branch police to come up here to Long Hill and help us. But
guys, can't help it. The long always gets me. It's so hard to do. I'm sorry. Long Hill, obviously.
Obviously. Great job, Mr. Vitarello. Thanks for reviewing those for us. And yes, the Long Hill police are always on the front line with us and helping us through every drill. Great job. Anybody who knows Millington School, when they think about it, the first thing they think about is Mrs. Dawson. Mrs. Dawson is ever present in Millington School. She puts the safety of her students as a top priority with everything that she does. So we thought that it was most fitting that Ms. Dawson speak to us this evening, not just about the minutia of the drop-off and pickup procedures, but the importance and the larger picture of administrative visibility in our schools. So Mrs. Dawson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to see so many people joining us tonight. So my role tonight is just kind of talking about administrator visibility and the importance of that. So when I think of a school leader being visible and present, I really think it gives students, staff, and parents the sense that somebody is actually in charge, that there's someone, the go-to person. And that helps us when we're all working so closely together. So when I think of drop-off and pickup procedures, just being out front, I think many of you see me. I always have the walkie-talkie tied to my hip and I'm running all over the place, but I really get the sense that I get to know your children. So the students with a smile on my face, and then get to know them a little bit, and then see the families as well. So it gives us all a sense of just getting to know one another as a school community. In terms of, and I can talk a little bit about what Mr. Vitarello talked about, our staff is really plays an important role, whether it's morning drop off, whether it's the pickup or supervising lunch and recess. We go over procedures with them. We talk about the roles that they play, the importance of student supervision, but by us being present out there, it's modeling what our expectations are. So they always know that we're showing up, being there to help support what they need to do. And I think that gives everybody clear expectations. I use that term a lot, but I think that's the important part of being present. And as well, it's always the communication, whether it's the tabletop drills that we review, but it's at our faculty meetings, our grade level meetings. clear communication with the staff about what needs to happen when we're present with students. So really, I would just say overall, by being visible and being present, and you'll see me out front, I'll talk to the police officers often. They come over. We're really a partnership out in the front of the building. But I think we really create a positive school climate, an environment for students and staff in which they feel that it's a pretty safe place to be. And every time, unfortunately, we hear of an event, we have to think about how can we make things better? What can we improve upon? And I just know, working with the Long Hill Police Department for as long as that we have, and even when I have to call in a quick instant, they're there right away. So I'm confident that we're going to continue to have that close relationship. We follow their lead, we invite them into the building. So I think the partnership is just really important. And I think if anything comes away from tonight, that you all are hearing that from us, that that's how important it is for us as administrators.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Dawson. And we know that going to school, especially if it's for the first time, which is what happens to our Gillette learners, can be a very scary prospect. We are so fortunate to have the caring leadership of Dr. Jones, who serves not only as the Gillette principal, making it a warm and inviting place for all students and families, but also as our director of curriculum, a critical role in the district. Dr. Jones wanted to speak to you tonight about the communication between parent and child, and also to share some of her expertise in the area of resources that we might all find valuable when talking about school security and safety. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Talking to your child about school safety is probably one of the most important conversations and discussions that you can have, and it does start at a very early age. However, what you say and how you say it depends on their age. So I'll first review, speaking with older children, you should look for opportunities to discuss their concerns about incidents of school violence. You should also comfort your child and acknowledge and validate he or she's concerns by listening to them. A good way to do this is by acknowledging if something happened, while also focusing on what was done and what can be done in the future to ensure school safety. With younger children, the approach is a little bit different. Your number one message to reassure them is that all of the adults in their lives will keep them safe. Something important to do when a young child brings up the topic of school safety is to emphasize that you and their teachers are going to try to keep them safe. They need to hear it from you as their parents to reassure them, to make them feel safe and protected. While you should stress your role in keeping your children safe, it also helps to remind your children of other important key figures in their lives and in your lives. For example, our teachers, principals, police officers, doctors and nurses, firefighters, emergency management personnel, and how they also help to keep them safe. By discussing school rules can also help keep your child safe. For example, following the teacher's rules in the classroom, in the gymnasium, for lunch and recess, since we are located on a major road, sharing with them how parents have to ring the bell just to come into our school. So some of these safeguards are something that even the youngest child can understand and comprehend. You may also see one of your children acting out their feelings by role playing during playtime, and this is completely normal and healthy as long as it's short-lived and the child doesn't seem scared by it. Sometimes children can work through their feelings this way, and you might even want to involve yourself in this type of play by using a toy that reminds your child of mommy or daddy and how they are protected by you. So it's important to remember that young children trust their parents implicitly, and to use this trust to really reassure your child that you will keep them as safe as you can. So at schools, we emphasize that you're safe. We review the safety procedures and guidelines so that students understand the measures in place to keep the school safe. For example, today we had a scheduled evacuation drill at Gillette to another location. And once we got to the location, I spoke to all of the students and staff and told them they did a great job. I shared with them that today we walked here and it was very sunny and warm outside, but next time it might be very cold or snowy or rainy, and that's okay. And I explained to them that sometimes we need to walk here as another place during school time to keep us safe. And I think hearing this message over and over again and practicing the type of drill, especially with the youngest students, it becomes part of their normal school routine. And if it happens down the road, whether it's snowing or raining, they're going to know what to do and they're going to know what to expect. And that's extremely important at that level. We make sure the students are comfortable in reporting any potential problems or behaviors that make them feel uncomfortable or unsafe at school. Some may include helping them understand the differences between telling and tattling on someone, informing adults. Another example is helping students identify at least one adult, whether that's in school or out in the community, that's their safe person. That's their resource outside of their normal environment. And the staff are informed and trained to look for changes in behaviors in individual students, especially after maybe a high profile violent event occurs that's broadcasted over the news, as well as before or after an active shooter drill that could trigger some feelings of anxiety. And lastly, we e-blast important safety information out to you parents because you are our selected audience and you entrust us to keep your children safe. So with that in mind, please be mindful of what you cut and paste and put out on social media for anyone to read. That's not as a school district, our select audience. We want to maintain safety procedures to our selected audience. And lastly, I do have some resources here. I will put them into the chat for you, and I can also e-blast them out tomorrow. One of them is the National Association of School Psychologists. They have an excellent resource for all different types of ages of children and school safety and violence. Also, the Mental Health America. They have an excellent section on talking to kids about school safety, all ages, from preschool up to high school. And another one I thought was excellent that I often use a lot is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. It teaches them and it provides resources to you on how families cope with violence that has happened to them or they've been privy to on social media or the news. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. As I noted in the chat, you can put questions in the chat or direct message them to me. We do have some content that we wanted to share before the question and answer period. So I'm recording those questions and we'll put them out to the group as soon as we get there. When we returned to full-time instruction from the pandemic, I was convinced that all of that disconnection from schools and routine would present us with increased issues of mental health crisis and awareness issues. And I was so pleased to see that the students who were struggling had already been identified, had been connected with resources, and that there was so much support available for students and families who needed them. That was due to the diligent and careful work of the leaders of our mental health team, Ms. Melissa Backer and Ms. Jerry Colon. We're going to offer some insights to the audience about students who need support and what services we provide for students so that everyone can gain a better understanding of how we work within the school system to help children who may be at risk. We're very fortunate to have Ms. Colon and Ms. Backer leading our accomplished team of mental health experts.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. And this is such an important component of our school safety. And we are so fortunate to have a great team of counselors and psychologists who work closely with administration and teachers to meet the social and emotional needs of our students. So we have built an open culture of communication with all the stakeholders in our community, and concerns can be brought to our attention from all of these stakeholders. So we might get information from teachers, students, other administrators, nurses, support staff, coaches, bus drivers, parents, or any other member of our school community. We also have computer programs that will alert us and monitor our students' internet usage. So it will flag if something suspicious or threatening is searched, and then we will get an alert and we can follow up with that student, or one of our counselors can follow up with that student. And sometimes it's nothing, and sometimes it does lead to a bigger conversation where we're able to help a student or a group of students that might be struggling. And we also want to stress that we get a lot of information from parents, and we don't ever want you to feel like you are bothering us by reporting something that you may have heard. That information is extremely valuable to us, and it could really help assist a student or a group of students, and potentially just create a safer environment overall for everybody.
To piggyback on what Melissa says, good evening, everyone. Once reports are received, our team has processes in place to assure that students are safe, and they do follow up on any and all reports received. They have a wide range of supports that can be used both within the school setting and also referrals to outside agencies. Support within the school can be either short-term or long-term, depending on what students' needs are. And the staff specializing in mental health in the district has a library of resources that they keep, that they are able to share with families regarding supports within the local area, within the township area, and within the county of Morris. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Long Hill Police's commitment to our students and families is unparalleled. Their response time is beyond record-setting, and they address every concern that we bring to their attention immediately and thoroughly. Their commitment to our students and their safety, to helping our faculty feel at ease and understand the importance of school security drills, is reflected in the fact that they've made time to lead this portion of the presentation this evening. So it's our pleasure to always partner with the police and to welcome Chief Naga, Lieutenant Marcheski, and Sergeant Sutton here to review some topics that are directly within their daily work between the police and the schools. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Mucci. Hopefully I'm coming in loud and clear for everybody. I just want to take a moment to recognize Dr. Mucci, Principal Vitarello, Principal Dawson. Even though Principal Vitarello mentioned Long Branch, we'll let that one pass. And the Dr. Jones and all their support staff for their efforts and their dedication and cooperation with the Long Hill Township Police Department. We've truly forged strong relationships and commitments with the Long Hill Township School Administration, and continue to seek out opportunities to enhance school security. Our goal is pretty simple. You know, we do everything in our power and under our authority to ultimately safeguard our children and our school employees while providing the best educational environment that can be provided. Major guiding principle is our memorandum of agreement or understanding. In a nutshell, it's a lengthy document. It's roughly 50 pages and covers considerable information on interactions between school administration and law enforcement. It's been designed to ensure cooperation between law enforcement and education officials and ultimately protect an educational environment. It reaffirms the commitments to work together as equal partners in addressing evolving problems and emergencies of mutual concern. Recent events throughout the nation have made it clear to us that while schools are generally safe places for students and staff members, a wide ranges of concerns or offenses occasionally are committed on school grounds. And it just, or in a nutshell of it, is the memorandum of agreement keeps us aware and remain concerned by recent events that have occurred through the nation. The parties recognize that no school is immune. It's our intention to not to cause undue alarm or overstate the nature or magnitude of the problems faced throughout the nation. nor is it our intention in any way to jeopardize the rights of any of our students. To the contrary, we wish to emphasize that our goal is to safeguard the essential right of all students and school employees to enjoy the benefits of a prime school environment that's conducive to education. Accordingly, the parties of this agreement recognize the need to have in place policies and procedures to appropriately and decisively manage these possibly dangerous and disruptive situations. With the memorandum of understanding or agreement, we also have school response procedures that are strictly confidential to the police agency, as it covers specific responses and avenues to respond. So although that document is not shareable, we do have operational playbooks in place in event to address certain situations. So that's one aspect of it. A recent law that was signed in by Governor Murphy on, I think it was August 1st, was the creation of a New Jersey Threat Assessment Team. Basically, the mindset behind that is that we can no longer act in a capacity just first responders, both as law enforcement and school officials. We are tasked to now look into being first preventers. The idea and the mindset is to hopefully prevent and intervene before a situation escalates or a problem arises in our school district. So with that, I believe there's some movement on both sides to form these assessment teams and come up with procedures to seek out potential problems and prevent hopefully a situation in our schools. On our agenda is an item labeled Rescue Task Force. Now, Rescue Task Force, we signed a memorandum of understanding between the fire departments and the first aid squad. And what that does, it's a pilot program that was created by Morris County, and the training is conducted by Morris County OEM, Jeff Paul. He's been a really a key player in the training. We signed that agreement back in February the prior year, obviously due to COVID and some concerns. The training has been put on or delayed, but we did attend the training. We were one of the first agencies to attend. Myself, Lieutenant Marcheski, Brendan Ray from the Milton Fire Company, Jonathan Fessock from the First Aid Squad and the Sterling Fire Company, and also Bob English from the Long Hill First Aid Squad, all attended the meeting collectively as a group. And just to give you a real quick idea of what it involves, our officers are tasked with making entry into the school. It's the minute they arrive on scene, they're going to the school to address any concerns. There's no wait, there's no delay, there's no setting up a perimeter as it used to occur in really back in the day, for lack of better words. We've additionally added another tool in our toolbox, and this creation of a rescue task force allows basically a first aid squad member and a firefighter to make entry into the school at the protection of law enforcement officials or law enforcement officers to render aid in what we would call a warm zone. And what that does is allows us access to students or staff without waiting for a scene to be completely cleared by law enforcement. So it's another tool at our disposal. It's another opportunity. Like I said, it's a pilot program, and we were one of the first agencies to partake in it. We will be conducting some further training with that group. I think Lieutenant Marcheski is going to share with you some of our planned training events to introduce the Rescue Task Force and hopefully incorporate that into our list of assets here at Long Hill Township. I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Marcheski to pick up on some of the agenda items.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Marcheski with the Long Hill Township Police Department. I have a few topics that I'm going to discuss, and the way I came about my topics was I thought more along the lines from a parent's perspective. So the first area I'm going to go over is communication. So if there's an event at one of the schools, as a parent, I would want to know what's going on right away. And one of the ways that the police department or the parents can find out what's going on is through School Messenger, where the school will be sending out alerts as to what's going on. Additionally, the police department has access to the Rave system, which is utilized by the township, where we can put out alerts townwide. So if you haven't already done so, I would recommend going to the township website and signing up for the Rave Alerts, because that's what the police department is going to use to put out messages. It could be storm related, road closed, etc. But in the event that we have an incident at a school, we'll be utilizing the Rave Alert system to put out messages to the parents. In addition to that, we've also realized that a lot of people look to social media for information as to what's going on. Had some recent events that I'm aware of, not that occurred locally, but we keep an ear to what's going on in New Jersey. And I spoke with some of the officers that handled that situation. And what they learned, one of the things that I never thought about in all the trainings that I went to, is that I was at a high school and the children in the school were sending out information to their parents as to what was going on. And some of that information turned out not to be accurate because the children themselves didn't know exactly what was going on initially. So we will now look to put something out on social media on our Facebook page as to what's going on. For instance, what we put out at the last one was that there was a large police presence at the school. The school was in lockdown. We were conducting an active investigation and not to respond to the school. And as soon as we determined that it was safe, we would start the reunification process with the parents. That seemed to work out pretty well. You can also call our emergency operations center for information. They are well staffed, and it's a very impressive communication center, and they are equipped to handle situations like this. Speaking about 911, Long Hill Township is in the southern part of Morris County, and we border Union County to the east and Somerset County to the south and west. Sometimes we've found when people dial 911 from their cell phones, it will get picked up by Somerset County Communications. Sometimes it gets picked up by Warren Township Communication Center, or it could get picked up by Union County Communication Center. So what I just want to remind parents is that, or teachers, or anybody that's in the area in the southern part of Long Hill Township, that if you utilize a cell phone to dial 911, your call may be answered by a dispatcher in Somerset County or Union County, or even Warren Township. We do conduct tests, and recently all of our tests, phone calls to 911 have gone to Morris County Communications. However, we just had a CPR call recently in ShopRite, and the 911 call did go to Somerset County. Another one went to Morris County Communications. So just be mindful of who you may be speaking with. They may not be familiar with Long Hill Township. One of the intelligence, information sharing, and feedback. This is a goal of ours and important to us. We accomplished this. We have the phone numbers of the principals' personal cell phones. They have our personal cell phone numbers. Dr. Mucci has my personal phone number, the chief's personal phone number. We speak to each other during business hours and outside of business hours. One of the individuals that I speak with pretty much on a daily basis is the transportation coordinator. So first thing in the morning, if I find out that a road's going to be closed, or if there's some construction or something that might interfere with bus transportation, I will contact the transportation coordinator. And even in the past, sometimes I find out that we have an emergency, a water main break, et cetera, and a road's going to be closed for an extended period of time or construction. I've spoken with the transportation coordinator off hours later in the evening to let her know what she could expect in the morning. We also accomplished this by having officers at schools during drop off and pickup. That's one of the chief's big initiatives is that he wants police presence at the schools, and I'm sure everybody sees that. That gives the children the opportunity to meet with the officers, speak to them face to face, see them in uniform, see our detectives in their uniforms, and just form that relationship with the officers at a young age. I don't want to talk too much on that. Sergeant Sutton is going to speak further on that. But that also allows us to socialize with the parents and the teachers and just talk with everybody there. And usually that results in us receiving information or little tips or concerns from parents or other students about someone who might be experiencing some difficulty, and it provides us an avenue to approach them and assist them. Let's see here. The Firearms Law update. Recently, the state Supreme Court said that the residents in New York, New Jersey, they can carry concealed, and we have received applications. So I just wanted to remind everybody who has a concealed carry permit, whether it be issued by the state of New Jersey or reciprocal from another state, it is still state law. It's a third-degree crime to carry a weapon, whether it be a firearm or some other device, onto school grounds. So just as a reminder, if you're dropping off your child in your vehicle and you're pulling onto school property, you can't have a concealed weapon on you or in your vehicle. We have a zero tolerance policy on that, and we will address that as needed. Law enforcement access to the schools. In the event that there's a situation, and even during normal business hours and during off hours, all the officers have access. They have key cards with remote access into all the buildings, into all the areas. And then we also have keys that allow us entry into other areas of the school. So the officers train with them. They each have their keys, and they're encouraged to test those keys on a routine basis, as well as make entry and do walkthroughs through school throughout the day, and after the school children have left for the day. Training. We're always seeking training. Sergeant Sutton and I have recently attended school assessment security training. Sergeant Sutton and I are trained in completing school assessments and developing, updating our emergency response plans. I've recently attended a training that was provided by the school for the teachers. Actually, I think it was the staff, the admin staff. The teachers is coming later, right? Correct, Dr. Mucci? Yeah, okay. Let's see. We conduct drills and training throughout the year. At the end of this month and the beginning of next month, we're going to be conducting 2 trainings. It's our active shooter training, and that's going to be conducted in the schools while the children are off. And we have a lecture period in the morning and then a practical in the afternoon. And like the chief said, we are going to introduce the rescue task force. We've already spoken with our emergency responders in the fire service and the first aid members, and they are going to be sending members to participate in this training with us in the practical portion in the afternoon. Let's see. Along those lines, the admin also gets together and we conduct training, and we speak with other agencies regarding incident command, and we've shared in the incident command posts with other agencies who have experienced incidents, so that we can get an idea of what we're looking at and see what's happening and how we can best respond to an event in Long Hill Township. That brings me to, again, the fact that we're the southern part of Morris County. Now, it's not really a benefit that some 911 calls may go to Somerset County or Union County. However, the The nice thing about bordering Somerset County and Union County is that if there is an event, it's already, the MOUs, the MOAs are already in place. And we simply just need to call dispatch and request for additional units. So if there was an incident in Long Hill Township, you can absolutely expect to see Bernards, Harding, Warren, Berkeley Heights, Chatham's, Woodbridge, Watchung, and they will just keep coming and coming and coming. The first aid squad, they have the ability to hit a button with dispatch, and they can have 25 ambulances here within a few moments. So we keep up that training on an annual basis, and we strive for the best there. Let's see, did I miss anything? I think that's it. I'm going to do some quick turnaround here. We're going to turn it over to Sergeant Sutton.
Okay. All right. I first want to start off just thanking Chief Naga and his command staff for allowing me to be a part of this meeting tonight, and Dr. Mucci and your administrators for, again, allowing me to be a part of this meeting. Again, so for everyone that doesn't know me, I am RJ Sutton. I am a sergeant here at Long Hill Police Department. I've been serving with this agency for 8 years, most of that time serving as our DARE officer, our juvenile officer, and our detective. One of the things I want to talk about first is our DARE program. Our DARE program has been active for 20+ years, allowing officers like myself to really foster relationships with students from grades kindergarten all the way up until 8th grade, and these relationships really continue long after students leave Long Hill schools. I'll add that there's nothing more comforting than a student or former student approaching you at Valley Mall and saying, hey, Officer RJ, it's good to see you, and now I see that they're clearly in high school, college, and so on and so forth. So it's very comforting. The DARE program allows students to become familiar with an officer in uniform, see them as a trusted adult, possibly a role model, and even more so a friend that they can approach at any time if they need be. The DARE program has really expanded to include topics such as how to handle peer pressure, effective communication with others, being safe and responsible, bullying, and what seems to be most popular these days is the dangers of cyberbullying through the various platforms on social media. Moving on, as a sergeant, one of my responsibilities is to ensure officers are present at each school during the morning and afternoon drop-off, as Lieutenant Marcheski had just previously mentioned. However, officers will often, you'll also often see a patrol car following school buses. Officers will conduct bus safety, as Principal Viterillo said, in Long Hill Township, not Long Branch. I had to throw that in there. Our officers will often also check the crossing guards to ensure that each crossing guard is at their post. But what I want to emphasize here is that having officers in front of our school, it seems to be a standard these days. And what I want to say is that our officers, they're energetic, they're charismatic, and they want to engage with the students. And we want the students to engage with us. We don't want the students to shy away from us. We want them to know that they can come to us for help, and that they can address us or approach us if they have a problem or concern. As I mentioned, our officers are energetic, they're charismatic. So oftentimes the school administrators will let us know about events that are occurring at the school. So immediately, usually almost always, our officers are present. And even more so, most of the time they love to actually participate in some of the school events. During an officer's tour of duty, officers will conduct random area checks of each school, of each of the school's grounds, periodically, usually at random, sometimes routinely, during the day and night, when children are present or when they're not present. 2 years ago, our Attorney General developed what's called the Handle with Care Directive. The Handle with Care Directive essentially allows law enforcement to notify educators when a student has been involved in a traumatic event outside school. When officers are investigating these traumatic events, we also offer referrals to multiple county and state agencies for additional assistance. The Long Hill Police Department also has an assigned juvenile officer. The responsibility of the juvenile officer is to investigate all matters involving juvenile misconduct. The overall objective of the juvenile officer is to really keep the juvenile out of the criminal justice system as much as possible, or as much as he or she can do. And that is really through what we call the Station House Adjustment Program. It's essentially an alternative to entering the juvenile into the criminal justice system and offering a less severe consequence, such as community service. Moving on to our last topic, or my last topic here, will be our agency's emergency response plans, emergency operations plans. The emergency operations plans, it's a document that contains sensitive information on how law enforcement and educators respond to an emergency at the schools, at each of the schools. The response plans are unique to each school. They are well thought out throughout the years, with expertise and experience behind them. And what I mean by this is officers of this agency, including myself, and the school district's administrators, have met with outside agencies that include the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Education, the New Jersey State Police, and their offices of emergency management and school preparedness. And through these consultations, we were really able to carve every detail, so that law enforcement and school administrators can really act upon an emergency most effectively. The emergency response plans will include, without going too much into detail, building evaluations, critical infrastructure, and the best safety practices for law enforcement and school staff. Every year, these emergency response plans are updated with emergency officials and district staff to identify areas of vulnerability. So it's really a ever-evolving document that's always changing and always in need of update. And our officers are responsible for familiarizing themselves with the emergency operations plans routinely, so that our response is most effective. That I think is going to be all for me. Thank you again, Chief Naga and Dr. Mucci, and I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, I was monitoring the chat, so I'll run through some questions quickly. We had a question about why the meeting was virtual as opposed to in person. And we went back and forth on this, and we've always had great participation at virtual meetings. And because September is heavy with evening commitments for back to school night, We elected to go virtually with this meeting, and we think it might be the right choice given that we have 72 participants. So we're hoping that the participation was more broad because we went virtually. But to the point of maybe it being easier to have these conversations in person, that's something we can definitely revisit for the future. Had a question from the audience about whether our youngest students receive instructions on what to do if they come in contact with an active shooter, what we tell them when lockdowns are taking place. And we use developmentally appropriate language. I don't know, Dr. Jones, if you want to add a little bit to answer that question more fully.
Sure. So we tell the younger children at Gillette that sometimes things happen in school that we don't always plan for. It could be a funny smell in the hallway. For adults, we know that could be the smell of a gas leak. We tell the students there might be an animal running on the playground. We don't really want to share our recess. You know, adults, we know that means there's a bear on the playground. We have had squirrels come in during arrivals where we had to do quick lockdowns. So we would say to the children, sometimes little pets like to run in our school. So we have to have a lockdown, but we reiterate that lockdowns are just like fire drills. They're practice to keep our school safe. And that's really what we focus on. Teachers review with their students. If you're walking in the hallway, maybe going down to the nurse's office, or if we are en route to library and we have a lockdown or a drill, we go to the nearest open door. Children know from the office staff and the teachers, if they're in the bathroom and they hear that there's a lockdown, they lock their stall and they put their feet up on the seat so that if a teacher were to walk in, we wouldn't even see that anybody is in the stalls by looking on the bottom. And recently, actually by the end of this week, I'm going to have it up and running. It's an app for the faculty at Gillette so that we are not announcing scary information over the intercom for students. We share it through an app. If there is an emergency situation that comes up and maybe we're not all by our cell phones or we don't have maybe email, whatever the case is. But children, do we say in our classroom and over the loudspeaker, this is what you do if there's an active shooter in the school? No, but we give them enough examples of different scenarios to know why they're in their classroom with the door shut or they're in their classroom with the lights off and why we have to be quiet at times. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Chief, we have a question in the chat. Are there any armed police officers present in the school throughout the day as opposed to just drop off and pick up? I don't know if you want to share kind of what we've been discussing and looking at this for the future in Long Hill.
Sure, it's a very good question. That question has come up a couple of years ago, and we had visited some options. I recently sent a communication to township officials via the police liaison regarding the furtherance of our school safety efforts by means of an additional officer dedicated to the school system, both during schools and if there's any after-school activities. That officer would serve in his or her official capacity as a special law enforcement officer, Class 3, specifically designated to handle schools and school situations. Currently, we are seeking the option of including a Class 3 special law enforcement officer to our staff. I've provided a comparative analysis to the governing body regarding what other school districts are doing, how they're being funded. And I believe we are going to be engaging in communication pretty soon or in the near future with Dr. Mucci and hopefully the township committee regarding making that plan happen. So it is an item on our list. We have recently visited that as an opportunity to add or enhance our school security. So you should hopefully, with the support of the governing body and the school administration, be seeing that in place in the near future.
Thank you. Another question for you. How confident are you with the communication systems that the schools have in place that give them an ability to reach out to the Long Hill Police in a real emergency, not just for a planned drill?
Right. Obviously, the communication issue has been an item of wide discussion, both as it relates to the town in general and the school. One of the more important and areas of concern for us would be proper communication in the school. One of the things that we did this morning is we are currently transitioning over into FirstNet system designed specifically for first responders. We had officers or specifically a supervisor go out and check communication with that coverage in each of our schools, in each of our facilities. We've been in communication with our carrier, and we are taking as much measures as possible to provide for redundancy or another avenue of communication. Should we don't have the coverage that we need in the school for standard radio communications, we do have a plan in place to utilize second avenue, basically cellular, Wi-Fi communication as redundancy or as a backup plan in case we have a failure or does not satisfy our needs. So the plan is in the works. We will have another discussion tomorrow morning with our provider to see how we could get 100% coverage in the schools through that redundancy effort by means of cellular communication, cellular to radio communication. So we are aware of it. I'm hopeful that county communications will continue to work with us on our needs and fulfill the concerns of our residents.
So in following up to that, Chief, another couple of questions for you with regard to first communication. The alert now, we had an active conversation in the chat while everyone was presenting about how to get connected to emergency information in town. And the question on that is the Alert Long Hill app that you get through the town website the same as a Brave communication system that people have heard you talking about before, or is that something different?
No, the Rave Alerts are, I think they refer to it in the chat as Brave. It's actually Rave with an R, but it is, you'll get an alert. It's based on how you sign up. Now, there's the Rave Alert, or basically, I see there's a problem with the link functioning on the website. We'll make sure that's up and running, hopefully. The other avenue for us to communicate any concerns, we do have a reverse 911 system. Regardless of whether or not you sign up for it, you will get an alert in times of an emergency, but that has specific criteria of when we can trigger that. So in the meantime, for any road closures or any minor issues, I would definitely make sure you sign up to that Alert Long Hill, and that's how you'll get your Rave Alerts. But it's also specific to what you signed up for. So make sure you check off everything you're interested in receiving, and you'll absolutely get the notification.
Another follow-up question for you, Chief, in terms of thinking about the future of increasing the presence of law enforcement at the schools, would it just be one officer? Should it be one officer per school? Would we be willing to expand? I'm condensing a number of questions so you get them all at once. Would we be willing to expand beyond the Class 3 officer? And what should citizens do if they want to voice their opinion on this issue? And how closely is it tied to budget? So I sort of synthesized a number of questions. If you need me to go back over, let me know.
Nope. Obviously, budgetary concerns is probably a key issue or what's driving some of these decisions. While safety is of the utmost concern to the Long Hill Township Police Department, we can obviously recommend and stand behind certain initiatives that we want to accomplish. That will require the blessings of our governing body to make sure we have the appropriate level of staffing. By way of numbers of the police department, to give you an idea, our police department at one point was at 29 officers. We are currently at 23 officers. Sometimes they'll fluctuate to 24. So as far as manning levels, we are currently not at a level where we used to be, where we used to have a dedicated school resource officer, an administrative sergeant, a traffic sergeant, things of that nature. So if budget wasn't an issue, I would absolutely support having a designated school resource officer at every school. I think, at least given this trial with the class 3 and seeing how they could be utilized, he or she, and how that functions, we may reassess it and decide that we need an additional officer or one at each school. But between at least one addition of a class 3 officer and the daily checks that our officers are engaged in, and I'll cover another question that saw pop up there as far as the inspection of doors and windows and so on and so forth. I think between the school staff and the officers, we regularly check the effectiveness of locked doors, and the school's been phenomenal with keeping things the way they should be. And at any point, should there be concern raised on either side, we immediately cater to it. So I can answer that and say that there is a method in place or procedure in place. Should there be an issue with a door or a window, I think we are in direct communication with that.
Yes, and we use School Dude, which is a system that catalogs all of our work orders. So we encourage people to report anything that's emergent right away. But they can also input any maintenance order through this School Dude system. And as much as we check it, there have been cases here or there where I've received a text or a call on the weekend when the police find that maybe somebody inadvertently left a window open when they were cleaning, and the police go in, they take care of that for us. And it's been a great partnership to really both be looking out for the same things, because we are human, and we might forget to close or lock a door, but the maintenance schedule is regular and diligently followed up on. We have this group of questions about communication that I think are very interesting, and they revolve around a couple of things. I think all coming from the idea that parents want to be able to talk to and communicate with their child when a safety issue may be happening, when there's a crisis in school. So these questions are asking us, should children be allowed to have their cell phones on them at all times during an emergency in the school day? We know that it might be a distraction from learning, but if they have their phones during this day, then they can communicate to us in a crisis. And a specific question in relation to the incident last school year at the high school, where the children told why not to post drills to social media, as some kids, even in the elementary school, will post about what's happening in the schools. So I guess first, how do you allay a parent's fear if they can't get in touch with their child because of a cell phone policy? What are the benefits to these policies, and what advice do we have for parents, and what suggestions should we consider on this topic?
So from a law enforcement perspective, obviously, the school has their student handbooks and their rules and their procedures that they want instituted. From a law enforcement perspective, trust in a juvenile, someone who hasn't mature to an age or has had the training to know when it could create a dangerous situation or compromise that student or additional students in that area. The mere fact of having a ringer on or giving off any kind of signal or noise, or being heard speaking, or even releasing information that's not factual may create additional concerns for us. Now, the first thing, and I know as a parent, and Lieutenant Marcheski and Sergeant Sun, and a lot of people on here as parents, the first thing you want to do is go to that school, get your kid, and take them home safe. With the procedures in a lockdown, that is only going to not escalate the situation, but create additional concerns for us, an additional, really non-threatening, confrontations or take away attention from first responders to address the parents, we will, ensure that whatever information that we have, as fast as we can release it, we will release it. Our concerns, our interest at that time is to ensure that everyone in that school is safe. We will put in place and we'll have in place a reunification process. So there could be an orderly dismissal of students in a situation where we can account for everybody who was there. We can ensure that no one is left behind, or no one is hiding in a closet. Or so, the main thing is to really, I guess, to either have the trust in the school administration and the law enforcement officials that we will get you the information that you need to have without jeopardizing the efforts on site, and ensuring that your child comes home to you safely, and in a way that we could document where every single person in that school is and where they've gone. Understand that even if it's a non-violent situation, understand that if it's a smoke condition or a fire of some sort, we will take account of what the injuries are and where those students have been transported to, and report that directly to the parents or their legal guardians. So I would just say, allow the officials with the training that they've received to engage in the orderly fashion that we've been trained to do, and we will absolutely relay any information that we can have to you as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Vitarello, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Just throughout the year, we try to reinforce with students that we feel it's best at the middle school level if they do keep their cell phones in their lockers. So we follow that procedure from really the first day on. If students need to get into communication just on a normal routine day, we always encourage them to use the main office for a lot of those reasons too. Then if we connect to, if it's an emergency, our goal is to evacuate those students if need be as quickly as possible and keep them safe. So that's where we try to keep our focus. We understand, and the chief made an excellent point, and our goal is to ultimately get them back into your hands as safely as possible. That's the focus for everyone, at the end of the day, getting those kids back safely to you. But it can just, feel that it can create some additional challenges if the spread of communication can be that widespread. So I hope I added to that and answered the question.
Yes, thank you. One of the other pieces we have coming up are, rest assured, we practice drills during recess when students are outside. We stagger the times of the drills so that we're not always getting them at the same time doing the same thing. That was a question in the chat. Another question was, okay, understanding that the doors are maintained, are we, and people are checking them, do we have any kind of alarm on there if somebody's propping a door open? And that's something that we've been looking into. Certain doors are alarmed, that if they were open, we would know, but not all. And we are investigating getting a system that would set off an alarm if a door is open in a prop way for an extended period, where the principal can kind of look at a screen and see if there are any doors open to the outside that should not be open. Many of these school shootings after the fact reveal red flags that should have been caught earlier and could have possibly avoided the situations. How can we ensure that we are catching these red flags or warning signs from students who may be at risk for violence to themselves or others in advance? I know, Ms. Backer, you spoke about some of these things. Do you want to talk about some of the screenings that we use, the communication systems, again, specifically to identify students who may be at risk of harming themselves or others?
Sure, and I think Mrs. Colon, also, if you could chime in to help with just what your team is doing with the risk assessments and the behavior assessments that they conduct. If we feel that a student is at risk, or they report something, or something is reported to us through them directly, from a parent, from the counselor, then we have a series of assessments that can be conducted by a member of our child study team. And pending on that assessment, the students can be, sent out, to be further looked at. Their parents are always contacted, and there's a process that we follow through our chain of command that Ms. Cohen can go into more detail about.
Right. So as Ms. Backer said, we do use formal assessment tools that they will follow up on, and the end result will determine what the next steps are for each student. There's a couple of different assessment tools that they use, if depending on what the needs are, what the risks are. We have, in addition to our mental health staff, we also have behaviorists. So if it's more of a behavioral issue, there is some different assessments that they're able to do also, to make sure that we have everything in place in the school setting to make sure that they stay safe and everybody else stays safe.
The question is, a follow-up is there communication in these instances with the Long Hill Police? Yes, there is. The police and the schools work closely together. You also heard the communication goes the other way. And the police use Handle with Care protocol to keep us informed of things that are happening outside of the school day so that we can be aware as well. Student parents also concerned about communication with the bus driver. Can we get the bus driver's name and route number? And how would we be able to monitor where our child is on the bus if they don't arrive at the expected time? The first thing to do is call the transportation department, and they can check in directly with the bus, let you know where it is. You're also assume that if you have a question, did my child get on the bus? If the bus arrives and your child doesn't get off, fortunately, that's not something that we encounter often, but we encourage you to really stay in touch with the school, follow the dismissal procedures, not make changes at the last minute on drop off and pickup without informing, but we do keep track of who gets on and off the bus. So if you want to monitor where your child is when they are late, I suggest that you call the transportation department directly. They'll be in touch with the bus driver, and they will let you know exactly how far they are from your house and what maybe the reason for the delay is. I've copied the chat and all of the questions. I think we covered most of them, if not all. I'm not seeing missed, but I did copy the chat, and we will be sending out the copy of the link to the recording for anybody who missed it, along with a Q&A, just with the answers to the questions that we provided in writing. So if there was a nuance to your question that we missed, we can address that. I'm also going to put my email address in the chat. And if you have a question that comes up later, or that you didn't have an opportunity to put in the chat tonight, you can email me and just put right in the headline question on school security. And within the next few days, the district will be sending out an FAQ based on questions from tonight's session and ones that we receive via email. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, thank our team for your great work every day, and thank the police for the support of our schools and for preparing all of the really worthwhile information for everyone tonight. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.